Hello friends, how's it going? Firstly, do you notice anything different? I got my hair chopped off just a few days ago. All right, it is time. It is time to get all this length chopped off. I am ready for it to feel light again. Here we go. Goodbye hair. All right, the length is gone. Here it is. This is the new do. I am so happy with it. It is exactly what I wanted. The exact length I wanted to feel really light and healthy. I'm so happy with it. That is the side note to today's video. But what I wanted to talk about today is how we got our little baby boy Henry, 5 months old, to start sleeping through the night again after he picked up some bad habits of waking up every 2 hours. So I am just gonna go into what we personally did as kind of a sharing story time organized into 5 tips. So this is not an advice, oh, every parent make sure that you do these 5 things. It's definitely not that. This video is just to show what we ended up doing for our circumstance that actually worked for us. So some of these things may work for you, some of these things may not work for you, but I just really want to go into and share what worked for us because it really did transform our sleep at night. So let's get into it. The first thing that we did was a big change. So Henry was sleeping in our bedroom in a bassinet beside our bed, and he had been sleeping there for a while. I had kind of planned to move him over into his own nursery at around 3 to 4 months old, but he ended up getting kind of sick, and so we let him sleep in there for longer because we just wanted him nearby. And when the 4-month sleep regression hit, he did end up taking on some really bad habits from that period, plus being sick for that period of time where he would wake up continually and he would be really upset. So in order to soothe him, I would end up feeding him. But what happened was it flipped his schedule, his feeding schedule on its head, and he started taking in a lot of calories at night. And so we were trying to feed him as much as we could during the day, trying to do extra night feedings. But then honestly, the more night feedings we would do, he would actually get more gassy at night and be more upset at night. So that wasn't really working. And so we were trying to break him of this cycle of just repetitively waking up to feed at night. We're like, how do we get him to stop doing this? How do we get him to soothe? So the very first thing that we did was to go ahead and move him to his own bedroom. So moving him to his own bedroom helped in a few ways. One, when he would wake up being upset, it wasn't as startling or as loud when you hear a baby on a baby monitor versus right next to your face crying in the middle of the night. It really shoots you full of cortisol when a baby is real close to you and crying. But when it's on the monitor, there's like that step removed, so you're able to wake up a little bit more gradually. The second thing that we needed to do after moving him to his own bedroom was to attempt to soothe him without feeding him. So in order to take some of those calories away at night that he was consuming, we had to not feed him every time he woke up. Now, that was very hard to do as a mom, and I know this is part of, I feel like, the kind of controversial advice, but it is just something that we needed to break him of because he was doing it every 2 hours and he didn't need to. Like weight-wise, he was excelling. He had gained so much weight post-birth and really rapidly. And so he was doing so good. He was doing so good with these feedings. And so he had no medical reason to be feeding that often at night. It had just become a habit and a preference. And so our goal was to just at least break him of the first feed, because we would put him to bed around between 9 and 10, and then he would wake up for the first time at midnight. We were like, if we can just break him of that very first wake up, if we can get him to skip that and at least go until 2 a.m., then at least we'll have, a 4-hour stretch there, and that'll be better than nothing. So that was our first goal, was to try to break him of that. So it went as you might expect, which brings us then to tip number 3, which is to prepare for like, I want to say maybe 2 to 3 nights. It wasn't all that much, but maybe 2 to 3 nights of really struggling. I mean, you're already struggling, right? You're waking up every 2 hours, but in order to really break baby of the habit of waking up every 2 hours, you have to be soothing them without feeding them. It was a lot of, soothing, going to sleep for 10 minutes, waking up, soothing, going to sleep for 20 minutes, waking up. And it did not take long at all for him to get used to not feeding at that first feed. And I will say, it started working like exponentially fast where he got used to it. He was like, oh, right. Okay, I don't feed at midnight anymore. And then instead of waking up, at 2, which would normally be the next feed, he would sleep even longer and go until 4. And so as soon as we broke him of that kind of midnight feed, he started doing longer stretches anyways. I think because he just started getting used to like, okay, I need to eat a lot because I'm not going to get fed at midnight. And that carried him through until 4 a.m. So the fourth thing that we ended up doing is we put a paci in his crib for some self-soothing, because we had to teach him how to self-soothe. Because that was the thing too that happens with a 4-month sleep regression, is baby is waking up really often throughout the night, and they have to teach themselves to go back to sleep. In order to do that without feeding and without you waking up every time they wake up between sleep cycles, they have to wake up, look at their surroundings, get used to it, maybe make cooing sounds, play around in the crib, and then go back to sleep. And so to teach the baby to do that without waking you up is a struggle. But what we decided to do is to put a paci in his crib. And he is at the age where he can roll and grab it and like let it go. And I will say, I mean, Henry's a little bit strange with the paci, where he will use it, but he's kind of more so gnawing on it like a teething toy as opposed to actually sucking it. And so for some babies, I think the paci is a really, really effective soothing tool. For us, it like works to distract his brain, but he's not necessarily sucking on it. So it's not going to be really an issue to break him of it, because he doesn't even use the paci every night. Basically, we just put something in his crib to help him soothe himself. We kind of did the cry it out method a little bit. I feel like we were somewhere in between, where we were trying to teach him that it is okay to cry and to self-soothe without letting him go a long time crying. So what we would do is on our phones, we would set a timer for 5 minutes, and we said, okay, let's try to teach him to self-soothe. We'll let him cry for 5 minutes, then we'll go up there, we'll rock him, we'll soothe him back to sleep, and then set him back down, try to allow him to keep soothing himself and keep falling back to sleep. And again, did not take long at all for him to get used to this. It wasn't like we were doing this for a long time. The hardest portion is those first few days and nights that you're trying to teach self-soothing and to try to sleep train, because it is a struggle bus at first. So just prepare yourself mentally for that. Along with the paci for self-soothing, we also used a weighted sleep sack. So we transitioned him. It was the proper time based on his rolling over to transition him from the swaddle to a sleep sack where his arms could be free, because this was the point where he starts rolling from his back to his stomach in the middle of the night. And then the last thing that we ended up doing, and I was so confused about how this would work until we started practicing it, was to start putting him to bed drowsy. But what I noticed is that for his daytime naps, he's a lot more agreeable than he is for his bedtime sleep. For his bedtime sleep, he's a little bit more fussy, tired from the day, a little bit more cranky. Truly, sometimes it would take 45 minutes to get him to go to sleep. And that is just too long. That is too much when you're doing it every single night. And so, during the day, I can soothe them all the way to sleep in, 5 minutes or less. It would go so successfully. But when it was time for bedtime, he would be a little bit resistant to it. That is kind of the last thing we ended up practicing, was just to put him down for bed, a little drowsy. He would toss and turn in there. For the first little bit, he would cry, like I said, for the 5 minutes. Then we would soothe him, 5 minutes, soothe him, go to sleep. But after a few days of doing that, then it was just, he would just kind of like play around. He would play with the side of his crib. He would, you know, hold his paci, and he would just kind of flip around and, you know, be a goofball for 15, 20 minutes, and then he would fall asleep. And that's what we continue to do with him today. So those are all the things that we started practicing in order to get Henry to sleep through the night. And we did. We successfully went from him sleeping every 2 hours and waking up every 2 hours to feed to now he rarely wakes up to feed. And if he does, it's once throughout the night, somewhere between the territory usually of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. So now whenever he wakes up, I do feed him because he's learned the skill of not waking up all the time and not waking up constantly. So that's just what worked for us. I know different things work for different families. A lot of people do totally different things when it comes to sleeping. A lot of, you know, parents and mamas out there are co-sleeping. All of that is beautiful, wonderful. Whatever works for your family is great, but that is just what worked for our family. I would love to hear where you are at in the process, whether you're dealing with a little one who is not sleeping too well through the night, or any tips that you might have for other moms in the comments below. Please do drop them for what helped you really establish a good sleep routine with your little one, because I would love to hear it. You know, advice truly welcome. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it brought some value to you in your day. If you liked it, please remember to give it a little thumbs up and to drop those comments or tips or helpful things below if you have them. I am so excited again that you watched this video. I cannot wait to catch you on the next one.